We're going to talk about some marital infidelity today. And it's interesting, you know, sometimes as a preacher you got to think, okay, now maybe I should put the brakes on talking exactly about this particular subject right here because there might be children in the room. But then conversely, studies have shown that by the time, don't ask me which studies, I don't know, but studies, you know, kids are hearing all about some of these adult topics by the time they're 8 years old on the school bus. So sometimes the preacher's not talking about anything your kid hasn't heard about before. And also, if you have not had the opportunity to talk with your children about it, perhaps the Sunday that the pastor brings it up is a good time to go ahead and say, you know what, we as Christian parents need to talk with you, our child who hopefully is a Christian or is going to become a Christian someday, can talk about this kind of stuff. We can set you on the right path before the world has an opportunity to set you on the wrong path. And so it's very important to read our Bibles, to teach our children from the Bible, and sometimes it brings up uncomfortable subjects. But I think it's important that when you're doing this at home and you tell these stories and the kid raises their hand and says, now just, I know you don't raise hands at home, but now just a minute here. Lot and his daughters did what? And you can discuss how that's wrong and how it's bad, and that's not only why you shouldn't be drinking, but also why you shouldn't be forcing your kids to live out where they cannot meet anyone their own age, and all the other issues that come up with a story like that. Some of you are going, well, a story like what? I don't know that story. You're going to explain that story? No, that's why you have a Bible. Go home and read about Lot. We want you to get comfortable opening your Bible. I've already told that story, so. Hi, Elsie. I've already told that story. I'm going to tell that story. I'm going to tell you a little different story. From the time we were in about the third grade, and I tell you what, being not just the pastor of this church, but being kind of the youth leader of this church, also having the Sunday school and the Wednesday night with the youth and doing projects with them, it's forced me to think a lot about when I was that age and the years that led up to it. So I just want to say to the youth group, thanks a lot. I did not want to revisit those years. I did not want to ever think about those years ever again. I don't think they're fun for anybody. Maybe some of you are old enough to remember when being that age was fun. I don't know. But we had this weird fixation on having a girlfriend, and I guess in the girl's case would be on having a boyfriend, from the time we were in the third grade or so. Okay? And so when I sometimes mention that as a child, as a young man, I wasn't all that interested in girls, I don't mean that I did not notice girls. You know what I mean? I was very interested in how some girls looked. Okay, we'll just put that way. Everybody knows, you know, that I had no deficiencies in that particular area, probably, you know, but when all of your friends point to some girl on the playground and go, me and her, yeah, we're going out. That's exactly how all of our parents reacted, too. I didn't know everything in the third grade, but I knew that was kind of dumb. I just like, and our parents' favorite thing to ask us, because that's the language we used, was we're going out. Well, guess what was our parents' favorite thing to ask us? Going where? Going where? Where are you going? You going to hop on that tricycle and just, you know, go share a milkshake down at the diner? What are you going to do? And just, you know, but we used that, and I guess a previous generation had said, you know, going steady or whatever, you know, because if they said we're going out, it meant we're going out tonight to the movies and then maybe to the park and whatever people did. Just dumb, you know. And I went to such a small school that by midway through junior high, after 7th grade, every guy friend of mine had dated just about every girl in the grade. And in high school is when they started going to see if they could ruin their relationships with females in the neighboring schools. And already had drama with everything, and I didn't go on a date till junior prom, because, like, you have to go and you have to take a girl, and I had a girl I liked, so I asked her, and I up until that point, you know, and foolishly, because my parents got married young, I thought I was about ready to start thinking about marriage at about 17. Well, that makes sense, you know, as if, you know, I'm just going to put off dating and then boom, jump right to, I want to be with you for the rest of my life. So that's weird to some people too. So we were all very confused about this whole dating thing. And I remember being about a freshman or sophomore in high school, and we went to youth group, and my dad was pastor of the church, and we had another guy doing the youth, and we were signing pledge cards for something, a big event. I think it happened in that dome that's in Atlanta or something. It was called True Love Waits. We were signing a pledge card saying we would not have sex until marriage. And I could sign that for sure, you know. This whole dating thing just looks stupid to me anyways. And I... You know, I wasn't out carousing all the time. All my carousing friends signed it too, and we were looking at the list of people who had signed this big plaque, laughing at who all had signed it a year later, you know. And, you know, because you're kids, you don't know any better than to laugh at everybody else's sin and depravity. But about that same time, there was a young man named Joshua Harris. He was about 21 years old. And I don't know how this happened. He was still single himself. He was barely out of his teenage years himself. And at some point, he came up with a manuscript for a book. And some Christian publishing company picked it up because Christian publishing companies are out there to make money. Did you know this? They're not out there to safeguard our spirituality or our children. They're out there to make money. And this is the one story. They published this weirdo's book that not only said, should you not be having sex before marriage, but you really shouldn't even date someone unless you want to marry them and be with them forever. This is God's plan for courtship. And if you do it by God's plan, you'll never get hurt. As if we weren't confused about sex and relationships enough in the 90s. Holy cow. And the thing that brings this guy up is because a couple of weeks ago, he announced that though he is a pastor of a big mega church, I think out east somewhere, I don't even know. He has decided he is no longer a Christian, and he's walked away from the faith, and he's sorry to everyone he ever hurt, including the homosexual community, for telling them that it was a sin to commit homosexuality. The guy that wouldn't even let us kiss until our wedding day is sorry for calling sin, sin. You got to understand, when this came out, I kind of went in full bore on this whole thing. Not kiss a girl till your wedding day. When you're already scared of girls, that's easy, right? That was the real reason I didn't date a whole lot, man. When that beautiful creature that just sets your heart on fire so much even looks at you, you just don't even know what to say. You could say something that'll get you in trouble with her, so don't say anything at all. Just stand there and go, you know. So that was the real reason why I was not too keen on the whole dating thing, is I would just freeze. I would just freeze. But this guy came in, we've got the Christian way to date now. By the way, we're going to call it court. It was all this stuff. And this is why so many of us are scared to death whenever there's a new author, whenever there's someone that comes out and they start to lead a movement. And your pastor shows you a video of some guy telling you he's going to solve all your parenting issues or something, and everybody is scared to death if you've ever been a part of that kind of movement before. Because someday, that guy that wrote that book on courtship, not only is he going to be getting divorced and leaving his church and renouncing the Christian faith, but I've actually read that all of the example couples, because he wrote not just that book, but he wrote other books as well, all of the example couples are divorced now. And if you only courted, and you only courted someone you were actually interested in marrying, and you didn't even touch them until your wedding night and everything like that, that was supposed to safeguard against anything bad happening to your marriage. Let me tell you what, it made dating in college a lot of fun. Thought I'd get a few more laughs than that. It was a mess. In fact, there's a movie that came out. I'm going to have to watch it. Like, I Survived, I Kissed Dating Goodbye. That was the name of the book, by the way. Why do I bring it up this morning? Why do I bring it up this morning? Come to find out, like I said, I dove in head first in the beginning, and then I began to see that it made like girls scared to go on dates with you. Like, well, I don't know. Let me talk to your father. Will you talk to my parents about it? I don't want to bring our parents along on anything. What are you talking about? I mean, I'll meet them. I'm not scared of them. Parents usually like me, but it made dating so weird. I eventually figured out that, you know what? Everybody's reading this book, and they're convinced that if you do it this way, you'll never get hurt. And that's ridiculous. Life is full of hurt and pain. Ever since Adam and Eve ate the fruit, life is going to be full of hurt and pain. And so I kind of got away from this stupid thing. I didn't understand that out there somewhere was a whole movement going on, a purity movement. Not only should we save sex for marriage, but we've got to do all of these other things. And if you give your heart away to the wrong person and they're not the right person, oh my goodness, this is something that is going to ruin the rest of your life. And we know that God forgives all sin, but we're really not sure if He can forgive this kind of sin. That's what the kind of movement is out there amongst Christian people, amongst evangelicals who read their Bibles. Today, we're going to talk about a leader of the people of God who falls because he sins sexually. And now, I want you to understand a few things. As I was reviewing this story, getting ready to tell it, a story I've known most of my life, I was struck by all the craziness that's going on in our society. And here David falls for a simple, regular, old, boring, heterosexual affair. Living in the day and age we live in, man, we're preaching against homosexuality, and we're preaching against polygamy, and we're preaching against all these things. Everyone wants a free-for-all sexually. And then to revisit this story where all David did was had a regular old heterosexual affair, and God was still upset with him. Man, you can tell the feeling, Elsie, I want you to behave. Do it. How is that for... I'm just trying to follow the guy's instructions, right? Simple, direct, make your expectations clearly known. Yeah. They're laughing at you, and it's your own fault. Yeah. You dropped something that you wanted to hang on to, huh? No sympathy here, Buttercup. All right. Because I said so. That guy even sells the T-shirts that say, because I said so. I think I'm going to order one and teach the class in it every... And like I said, I'm not teaching. He's teaching. I'm just the guy that's there. But I thought, wow, how funny it is that this sounds so vanilla compared to what everybody wants in our society. And of course, there's a little bit of a different understanding. When people completely reject God, well, of course they're going to sin. We don't mean to be sitting around talking bad about unbelievers who want to go have a sexual rampage. We just need to tell them about Jesus. Everybody's sinful. We're all sinful. We can't look down on them, obviously, but it does become a little bit different when someone is set up as a leader of God's people and all of a sudden they're behaving in ways that we find unacceptable. You know, there's a bit of a difference. So here we have King David, and of course, as the story goes on, you're going to point out another thing. But isn't the real problem the fact that it led to all the other sin? Well, that's the thing. David does murder to cover up what thing he did. And that is part of the problem with sin. See, we often explain sin as like a scorecard, you know. And some people, of course, have this completely wrong idea that you actually get good marks on the good side of your scorecard when you do good things. And here's our scorecard. And if the good marks on the good side outweigh the bad marks on the bad side, well, then you'll get into heaven. Of course, hopefully you've been in enough church and Sunday school and everything to know that that's absolutely not true. How many marks on your bad side of your scorecard does it take to go to hell? 1. You've sinned. You can't get into a perfect heaven. A perfect God cannot have communion with you. He doesn't want you. You're going to hell now. Okay? So, Jesus comes along and He wipes away all the bad marks on the scorecard. Yay! That's great. That's great. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad way to say it. I'm just saying that we forget sometimes, though, that sin is usually a bit more, how can you might say it, organic than that. The Word of God can plant a seed in your soul, and that Word can grow into something that transforms your life and you produce fruit from it. But sin is described in the Bible as the same way. It's a seed that can be planted and it'll grow in your life. And instead of just that one sin, God's not just angry at you for that one sin. He's angry at you for all of the sins that it led to. It grew in your life. The book of James tells us that sin, when it is fully grown, leads to death. And he goes through several steps there. And this story in 2 Samuel is an excellent picture of that. And so even though Jesus has wiped away our sin, and you can come today and you can ask God for forgiveness, and you don't have to feel guilty about all of the things that you have done. And God does want to wipe away the bad side of the scorecard. But at the same time, sin is still the enemy. God doesn't wipe away our sins, past, present, and future, so that we can go and sin all that we want. He set us free from not having to have that junk ruining our lives anymore.